Double kill. Triple kill. Quadra kill. Penta kill. Welcome.
Good afternoon, this is OzLoL Podcast, episode 52. Welcome along, my name is Carrot Colossus. I am the host of the show, and we are live on twitch.tv/TForce Podcast. So if you are not watching the show right now, well, you're probably listening to the podcast and it's too late. So you should join us Mondays from 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. This week we've got a lot to talk about. We've got some strategy to discuss, as well as some results of the qualifying events for the Winter Regional, the Oceanic Regional Finals. And to help me talk about this, I'm joined by two great guys. We've got Steve and Ralph.
Hello, friends. How are we all tonight?
Hello, listeners.
Tonight, not afternoon, tonight. Maybe still in Perth, but in the rest of the world, it is in fact the
I'm pretty
Well,
sure
it's
it's
tonight.
evening in Perth too.
Yeah, it is actually. I just lose my train of thought sometimes when I'm stressing about stream issues. Now,
all the time.
yeah, pretty much all the time.
all the times.
Basically,
all of the times.
Basically, when it comes to Battle Arena, like the first two games I'm stressing, and by the third game it's usually all sorted out, and I'm relaxed. So it takes me about 3 hours to get there. Now, we are sponsored by the Trinity Force Podcast, so you should go to our website, ozlol.trinityforcepodcast.com. From there, you can get all our previous episodes, as well as links to iTunes and Stitcher and our social media stuff, as well as our donation button. And you should also make sure you give us an iTunes review if you haven't already. And don't forget, we are also looking for ideas. So over the next couple of months, as things sort of wind down for the year, basically we'll be wanting to sort of discuss a whole range of topics. And so please let us know if there's broad categories of things you'd like us to discuss. So tonight we're going to be talking about slow pushing and the sixth man, as well as sort of minion control and things like that. So even if you don't have a specific question, but you want us to cover a topic, let us know. So you can get us at ozlolpodcast@gmail.com. That's our email address, or you can hit us up on social media. And thanks to Diesel for sending us the topics for tonight's discussion. So shout out to him. It's a bit early for shout-outs, but I'm going to do one anyway, because, heck, I'm the host. I can do what I want. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah, sure, you can.
Yeah, I can.
It's like, let's
Next
move on to
stop.
show news and then talk about the Oceanic region, and then let's go to shout-outs, and then we'll start
that's it.
talking about
Who's going to
interviews
stop
that we're
me?
having.
Who's going to stop me? Bring it on.
No one. That's
No
who.
one.
No one.
That's exactly it. So, let's talk about some scene news, because there's been some little interesting stuff, as well as some, as I said, the stuff happening for the Oceanic Regional Finals. I think it might have been last week or the week before, we mentioned how Team Immunity had left their squad, had formed a new organization called Exodus Gaming. Well, in the last week, they've changed their names to Chiefs, which, if you're familiar with sort of Oceanic League history, Chiefs was essentially a team picked up by Immunity when all they had was Radio, and Swiffer and Rosie and Swiper and Spooks joined the Team Immunity from Chiefs, which is why you might see Swiffer as Chief Swiffer. So essentially they've gone back to their old name. So that's kind of cool. And they changed all their social media stuff as well, which meant I had to go and re-like it all. So there you go, mate. So if you haven't already liked Exodus and all that, well, now Chiefs, make sure you check them out and follow them, because they got streaming and all sorts. So that's cool.
Better get on it, because who knows how long they'll be Chiefs for. I mean, next year they could have completely different names.
That's it.
So you got to jump on this while you can. You know?
That's it. Maybe you should send us names that they should take for their next name.
totally. They
We'll
can
make that
rotate quickly.
that part of
Maybe
the
a show
thing.
segment.
That's it. And let's talk about ACL, because on the weekend they had the online the ACE, the Australian Cyber League qualifying event for the Oceanic Finals, and the winner was, spoiler alert, Direwolves, which is very interesting because they haven't been doing so well in the CGPL ladder, having had 6 losses, but they beat out Avant-Garde in the final, as well as having there was yourself, Cheryl Chuffer, were in the mix, as well as Team Moody. They were probably the biggest names. So yes, Steve, you managed to watch some of the games on the Saturday in particular. What were your observations of what was... I mean, obviously, your own team, Team Unity, were playing, but did you manage to see many of the other games?
Well, I saw everyone that Immunity went against. So the best of three, the Direwolves versus Immunity. That was a game that was well into the day. Like, it was round 5, so everyone had played a fair few. Like, Immunity got past game 1, or was it round 1 with just a bye, and then round 3 didn't show up. So,
Yeah.
but it was still a long day. Everyone. We were doing analysis and talks of picks and bans and everything like that. So, that kind of stuff can drain you. By the end of the day, it was just, whew.
Yeah. It was a 6...
Oh, that's how I was feeling anyway. The guys are made of sterner stuff than me. But the games were very interesting. People picking all sorts of strange champions, and we saw a Rammus being pulled out by Rippy in Direwolves to counter the duo, the double marksman strat, and overall there's a lot of innovation. Nothing particularly groundbreaking in terms of stuff that we haven't already seen before, but Direwolves played a lot better than they have been in the CGPL, as you said.
Yep. Sorry, had to clear my throat. So I mean that's it's good for them. So if you can't remember who they are, it's Rippy, who was formerly of Dig, going back to a little while back, and I'll just read up the rest of the people who are in Direwolves because I've forgotten. Bad me. If it's gonna let me, there we go. So a Chuffer as well. Being in the bottom lane. So they're probably the two. And there's probably other people in that team, but they've changed their names. They always change their names. So there's a whole bunch of people I don't know, but there's probably somebody else who's had a background somewhere in the oceanic scene. I hate when they change their names. It sucks.
So inconsiderate.
It is so inconsiderate. Really, really is. So that would mean that we've got Exodus Gaming. Chiefs and... Legacy. That's 3 teams that have now qualified with. Still got the Road to Glory, the CGPL, and the Challenger qualifier. So there's still a while to go, still a few more things to go, but it's slowly getting there. So remember, PAX is PAX is when the actual final will be played. So it's still got a while to go. And in CGPL, just to keep you on top of the tables, so Envy and Immunity and Chiefs are all at top with 4 wins and 1 loss. Then Avant-Garde is 4th with 3-1, Legacy 3-2, YSSC is 1-4, Team Unlimited is 1-4, and then Direwolves is 6 losses, but they've qualified, so they'll probably take it easy with those games.
Yeah. AFK.
Yeah, just go AFK. And that's probably it for the scene news. So let's.
No, there is.
Oh, is
there? For scene news, it was my bad.
You didn't put it in the document.
No, I.
See, those of you were listening
houses.
before. Yeah, that's it. So none of you would have heard before. But before we started, Steve's like, "Oh, make sure you put it." I had the link for the ACL results, and he's like, "Oh, you didn't put it in the document."
You should really put that in the document.
Yeah, you really put it in the document.
That's our Steve impression, by the way. We're nailing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're nailing it. That's how he talks. That's it. So there you go, people. Done.
I'm glad that we got that out of our system. Now, the Challenger, the ranked 5 Challenger top 8 teams have been locked in.
Oh, okay, cool.
Riot Benji tweeted that today, and he said that he'd sent an email out to all the teams that have made it. So they're locked in. They haven't announced them anywhere that I've seen. It's just that Benji has sent out the emails, so I think they might be waiting for replies from those emails to see whether or not they're going to be able to make it to the events and such. But yeah, that I just wanted to throw that into the scene news.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm just loading up the client right now, so we'll have a look. Because if you look at the client, it should actually be the 5v5s. We'll have all the challenger teams in there. So anyway, we'll get back to that in a sec. Let's talk strategy. So we had an email, as I said a couple of weeks ago, from Dieselfire, one of our listeners, essentially asking about slow pushing and what Monte Cristo, OGN, Shoutcaster has called the 6th man. So, Steve, you are our resident strategy guru. So, why don't you go into what is the sixth man and, how people do it?
Well, the sixth man, or slow pushing, as it is called, it's a very simple concept, but can be quite difficult to actually do. It's basically you pretend like there is a sixth person on your team, and that sixth person is a massive minion wave that's in your favor. Normally, when you clear a minion wave, they clear a minion wave, the next minion wave rocks up, and they just continue to knock heads, and you can keep pushing backwards and forwards. And while you're both in lane, it's just how it goes. If you push a minion wave to the tower, they generally die under the tower, and then the minion waves reset to about the middle of the lane, give or take positioning, timing, and all that sort of stuff. Now, there's a certain trick that a few pro teams out there have done where they know that they're going to be 5v5 team fighting or Baron ward controlling, or they're just going to be away from a particular lane. We'll use top in this example. They're going to be away from top lane for a good 3 or 4 minutes. No one's going to be up there, because if anyone shows in that lane, then a team fight is going to erupt in a 5v4 situation, which is what nobody wants. So the idea is that you get the minion wave to stack up multiple minion waves in your favor. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do it. One of the common ones is to just kill 3 minions of one particular type. Either kill all 3 caster minions and leave the 3 melee minions there, or vice versa, doing it the other way. Personally, I think the getting rid of the caster minions is better, because it allows you to build up a larger wave. The reason that it allows you to build up a larger wave is because the melee minions do a lot less damage and have a lot more HP than the backline minions. In minion damage, I'm not talking in champion damage, because every champion could just go out there and basically one-hit these things late game. But when it's just minion wave versus minion wave, they've got the exact same stat line. If you take away, say, 3 of the minions, not taking into account cannon creeps at this point, then all of a sudden the 2 creep waves will meet. The 3 melee versus the 3 melee will meet, and then the ranged creeps from behind your minions will kill their melee minions. Now, by the time it takes them to do that, the next minion wave has arrived, but you've got twice as many caster minions as your first wave of melee minions dies. So it starts to accumulate more and more minions on your side. After a minute or two, close to 2 or 3 minutes, you can get a really, really powerful force on your side of the map, just charging down the map, destroying towers. You'd be surprised at how fast just minions will take down a tower. Now, the reason you do this is to get that 4v5 situation, so you can continue to just dance with the enemy team for a while, avoiding team fights, while the minions do all the damage for you. You can have it done in bot lane as to force someone to go to bottom lane so that you can just take a free Baron, because most teams aren't willing to fight 4v5 for a Baron objective. They might try and throw a Dragon Smite Steal or Baron Smite Steal over the wall or something like that, but that's the risk that they take, and you still have the advantage, especially in numbers and vision control. Now, I'm going to continue talking until someone else pipes in, so you guys go.
Sorry about that, my net dropped out then, so I missed everything you said. My apologies.
Oh, excellent! I'm glad.
I did
that
catch a little bit of it. Everything was an exaggeration, so I did hear a little bit of it. So sorry.
I mean, really, it's it's one of those things that's kind of got to be timed as well. So there's no point setting up this awesome minion wave if you're not actually pushing as well. So one element of it is you need to actually coordinate your actions so that you're putting pressure and making it taking advantage, because it takes. I mean, how long do you reckon it would take for a really good, say, just shy of midway points, if you want to get a big minion wave pushing? How long do you reckon that would take?
It really depends, because the minions' health and damage kind of scale towards the late game, and it's not directly in proportion. So if it's, say, we're 25 minutes into the game, that's probably a good time when you want to start this. If you can get the timing right, especially if you can kill their cannon minion and their creeps, but keep your cannon minion alive, you can get it a lot faster. It really does depend when that cannon minion spawns, because their cannon minion kills a lot of your front line off, and vice versa. So, and that can upset the balance. It also depends on, how much health the enemy team's turret has, because if you haven't got enough damage to kill the turret, then it resets in their favor. So, but I'd say 2 minutes, 3 minutes is probably a good indicator of timing. Now, you definitely don't want to do this if you're not going to be applying pressure, as Carrot said, because if you just build up this massive minion wave and then go farm jungle camps or your team recalls or whatever, then all you've really done is lined up a whole bunch of farm for someone with any AoE ability to come along and just collect it all in like half a second for 14 mana, So you don't want to do that. You want to be able to use it. It's really, really good in, especially professional games, where you'll hear the announcers say, this team is having difficulty closing out this match. That's said all the time, and by some of the highest caliber teams, and it's quite often because they haven't applied this strategy, or they haven't been able to get the opportunity to set this strategy up, or they're just dealing with massive amounts of wave clear. Like if they've got teleport on their top laner, and they on the enemy top laner, and that top laner has a lot of wave clear, then generally during this dance, if they play it correctly, they can make it seem like all 5 of them are there until, the Lulu or whoever it is has a chance to clear that minion wave, and then they can teleport in. So there is the mind games behind it, playing as if you have 5 when you actually don't. So
yeah, and I mean, I guess also, sort of related to all of that is that, if somebody breaks away, you need to take advantage of that. I mean, I was playing a game where we were, I think it was a solo queue game, we were really actually quite far ahead. But as you said, we don't know how to close out a game. And I mean, I knew how to close out the game, but nobody was listening to me, and I was trying to get them to listen. And I could see the whole game slipping from my fingers, which was so frustrating.
It's the worst feeling.
Essentially, we had them.
Bots, man.
They
bots.
They had
Those bots.
those bots. They had an Udyr who was split pushing like a maniac, and that was how they were getting back into the game, is through towers. And essentially, we had them bottled up against their mid tower. I think we had Baron buff even, and as soon as he, as Udyr sort of broke away and showed up in a lane, I'm like, I'm going in. I was playing house, so I jumped in there, no follow up, and we missed that opportunity. And I mean, dealing with split pushing is kind of in a similar sort of thing, where if you are 4v5, you've got the advantage, and you don't take that jump on them as soon as the one person is clearly away, then you're squandering that opportunity. So in the case of the 6th man, if one person breaks away and shows up in a lane, you need to jump on them right then and there, because if they go clear that wave and then come back, then you've missed your chance. But of course, if the minion wave is pushing and you just want to sort of, and they've got all 5 there, then you don't want to engage. You just basically want to keep them pinned down so they can't respond and you're getting those free towers. Because certainly in bronze and silver, people are not going to notice that. I mean, maybe gold doesn't as well, but I'm not at gold yet. So, but at lower elos,
it really does depend. It really does, because I know bronze players that actually know of how to implement that strategy.
Yep.
And I know gold and platinum players that don't. So it really isn't even an elo issue. It's really a game knowledge, minion control issue. Like if you understand that objectives win the game, not kills, and how to engage team fights and how to use numbers to your advantage, that mindset is how you implement this strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that bronze people don't know how to use it, but it's just, I think a lot won't notice this huge minion wave and won't necessarily respond, and so essentially you're getting a free tower. And if it's I mean, I suspect once that the inner turret goes and they're beating down on the inhibitor, I think you definitely will see people notice it because that's hard to.
Yeah.
I think even bronze players will notice that. But generally speaking, I don't think they'll necessarily see a tower being taken down by this massive minion wave. So
Yeah.
in that case, you just want to hold back. You just want to keep the pressure. You want to have vision, and sort of in the case of sieging the inhibitor turrets, you want to get those wards on either side of the turret so you can see if they move. It's
Yeah. Well, there's
Sorry,
there's basically two. Oh no, go ahead. Vespers and
I was
said
gonna say
like 5 minutes.
because I missed the beginning of your description, so I was just wanted to ask, just how exactly are you saying that this occurs? It's the TLDR
When-
of like how you actually execute this.
Okay, get more minions on your side pushing the wave for you. That's the TLDR version of it.
But then, so
I mean,
again, how
so say that-
exactly are you executing that? So because I'm trying to think about how tangibly, like for instance, if I'm playing like Leona support, I can't do that. If I'm playing Morgana, maybe I can do that. If I'm playing Vi, I can certainly do that. You know, so I mean, like, which
Yeah.
characters
So-
are able to do this, and
okay.
like, do you know what I mean? Like in terms of how do you actually make
Well,
this practical?
Any champion can do it, but it is definitely more suited to particular styles of comps. There's actually a few different ways that you can manipulate the wave. Like, I remember, I think it was Blaze, I believe, who did it this way. They forced the wave to push against them. You know, how you freeze a lane. We've been over that episode previously. You freeze the lane, and then you basically just last hit at like when it's got the smallest amount of health it could possibly get for you to last hit, and you basically do that for a while so that nobody can dive you and so that you're safe. But you're blocking the minions from moving forward, and eventually, because it's on your side of the map, you will accumulate more minions faster until once you've got a row of caster minions that greatly outweighs theirs, then you can just leave the lane. The lane will automatically just become a juggernaut just by itself. Another way I was saying before is you just kill their caster minions and then leg it, so that your melee minions kind of tank their melee minions and your caster minions DPS down. That's a very, very slow version of doing it. And then there's just the basic version where you just kind of run up like Singed ahead of the tower, kill their minion wave, and then all of a sudden yours starts going forward. But that's a very short-term one that doesn't accumulate quite as many minions. In terms of compositional advantage, Vi is a great one for it, because Vi is not so much the minion control master. She is much better at engaging on teams that in a short moment's notice. So if you see that the enemy Nidalee has gone to clear that massive minion wave that's going to take a tower or an inhibitor, then that's when Vi goes, bam, ult. I don't care who it's on, we're starting this fight now. Amumu, another great one. Malphite, especially amazing. Anyone who's like, okay, we've got a numbers advantage, time to fight. Exactly. Anyone who's really good at that really benefits from that kind of strategy. With the prominence of teleport in competitive and solo, or even, just basic level League of Legends, with that being on a shorter cooldown, the ability to just go up, clear a wave, and then teleport out, the strategy's not as effective as it once was, say last season, but also you can use that sixth man strategy to force them into a position where they use their teleport, and then you have the teleport advantage. So it cuts both ways, that argument. So you get them to use their teleport where they normally wouldn't have to, giving you the advantage later. Or if they don't have teleport, then you just completely dominate them. So you can that way you can have a 4-1-1 split push going on with your sixth man in the far lane. It's especially good if you want Dragon or Baron control, because if they have to go get that minion wave, they cannot possibly get to the Dragon or Baron, whichever side you're on, in time to stop you guys from burning it down. That's how you want to use it strategically.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, it would require you to have a fair amount of control over the game. So you can really only do this if you're ahead, right?
No. You can do this if you're behind as well. All you need is an unoccupied lane. That is really all you need.
But I guess if I'm behind, then it's pretty easy for the enemy to cross my 3 lanes and maintain pressure if they see a lane starting to push. Do you know what I mean? So, because if they start seeing that, if they're all ahead and they see something clumping up around sort of river, like middle of the map kind of thing, then they can pretty easily go back and clear that wave and get it pushing again. The only way I could really see this working, and again, maybe I'm completely wrong, would be if, I am ahead and I am able to sort of go back to my sort of, inner towers and start the wave push from there, or even start it from mid and then let it build from that. Because otherwise, I think it could kind of be shut down pretty easily by a team that's ahead. You know what I mean?
Well, a team that's ahead or behind, regardless, there's only a maximum amount of movement speed that any character will be building. Like, some, like, not ZL Ramus stuff. Oh, no, I'm talking, like, actual builds on actual champions and actual team compositions in actual games. So even if you've got a 10 and 10-05 Vayne, if she goes bottom to clear that minion wave, all of a sudden that's 7,000 gold that you've taken out of their current team fight. You no longer are the team that's behind. If they come to the minion wave with you, then you've relinquished control of that lane. It's just back to basic laning. You can really only pull this off. One, if you freeze the lane so that they can't interfere, but the main thing is that they don't interfere. Because if they show up to lane, then you're just last hitting backwards and forwards. But if you're alone in that lane and they're off doing dragon or they're, recalling at base or something like that, and you have the time and the plan to set this up in the right circumstances, because again, cannon minions can throw this off a bit. If you can do that, then that sixth man may be what you need to turn the game around. If all of a sudden, if they want a 5v5 team fight, that's fine. You guys just play the don't fight us, keep backing off under the tower dance.
Yeah. I mean, if you can stall...
Minion wave. Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
And if they go to deal with that minion wave, again, bam, Vialt. If you don't have a team composition that doesn't have that kind of engage, you're in a much weaker position. Like if you're running, I don't know, Janna, Jinx, like Karthus, characters that can't get in there and start that fight, then you're at a bit of a loss. I mean, it's still good to be able to manipulate the wave in that way to accomplish certain things, but there are team comps better suited to dealing with that situation.
And I mean, a good example of when you can be behind and it can be hard to sort of get an advantage is when there's still got outer towers up. I mean, that's something that's quite... like if they start grouping early and you haven't got outer towers out and you don't really, you need all 5 people to kind of, because it might be even, or, there might be a couple of, you kind of need everybody there, so you can't send somebody to push the lanes to get those outer towers, because without getting outer towers, like, it's really hard to get control of the game. So, I mean, that the 6 man is kind of a good way of slowly pushing those things, because you're not having to direct resources from your team to getting those really important objectives down.
I suppose the challenge as well is that you are active. You're probably actively giving up a fair amount of farm to be able to do this. So, for instance, if I was an ADC and I was behind, and I saw an opportunity to farm 2 minion waves quickly, versus farm 1 minion wave really slowly to initiate a slow push, I'd have to be really calculated about where I felt where I was on my power curve to make that decision.
That's the thing. You wouldn't be doing it one. Like, this is done over several minion waves. This isn't like, oh well, I got this wave pushing in my favor, because they'll just die onto tower. This needs to be done over several waves. Like, the whole 3 minion thing is a very small example of how you can get it started, and it works really well when towers are low on health. And if you're really good at it, you can actually measure based on your minions' movements where the push will stop. But that requires a lot of practice. Like, that's something that you need to get down to an instinct in order to be able to use in a game. So don't stress if you can't pull that one off.
I mean, really, if the minion wave is deep in your territory, you probably stay with a wave and pick up some farm and just kill the caster minions each time, and then that will get it going. Because if you only kill the first 3 caster minions, it's going to take forever and a day for that wave to actually get to their tower. So it's really, you only do that very slow push if it's sort of in the middle, or if it's kind of on their side even. Because then it doesn't have to cross so much territory. But the freezing the lane slow push by last hitting is probably the most effective way of doing it. That's how most of the professionals do it.
It really does depend on the game that you are in. I can't really speak to all the kinds of crazy team compositions that are out there, like Malzahar and Solo Top Tarek and all this kind of stuff. Like, there's stuff that it may not fit every single strategy, it may not fit every single game, but it's definitely worth trying.
And I mean, it's one of those things that actually inherently happens anyway. Like, that's just the nature of the game. Like, these minion waves build up on their own because of whatever reason. So it's probably something that everybody has seen in every game, almost every game they've played. They just didn't necessarily know how to make it a reality. So I guess it's one of those things that it's important to understand how it works, even if you don't make it a big part of the current game you're in. Because it's just it's one of those things that's knowledge of the game where maybe the next game it really will be a thing, because certainly in solo queue the team comp you get is kind of just what people play. Like, it's not necessarily okay, let's try and coordinate and get some synergy and let's do this particular strat. It's 5 people show up in a lobby, you're doing really well if nobody fights and if everybody gets the role they want, and you pick a champion that you're happy with. Like, that's how solo queue works. So probably understanding how it works is probably, in a sense, more important than actually being able to do it. Because then you can... Because even if you just see it naturally building up, then you think, okay, we need to push. We've got a 6th man going on. We need to put some pressure. If we put pressure on, we're going to get free towers. We're going to get free objectives.
I'll tell you just a little tip with this strategy. It's not nearly as sophisticated or accurate or reliable, but it is one way that you can do it, and that is a well-placed Ezreal ult as the enemy minion wave is on your tower, because you get all of their minions to about half health, and then your minion wave and the towers just obliterate their numbers, but still there's enough there to tank them and build up the forces for a little bit. And it does the same thing with the freezing star, where all of the minions are on your side accumulating. So that's a way that it can be done. As I said, not nearly as reliable, but it is another way that you can initiate it.
And I mean, that's probably true. I mean, Draven would do the same thing. Ziggs. I'm trying to think who else. Say again?
Well, Ziggs just kills it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, Draven does it all.
Style.
Welcome to the league.
That's it. Welcome to the league. All right. Well, I think we've probably covered that one, and we're about halfway through. So we'll. Was there anything, Steve, that you wanted to? I mean, did you want to? Because another question from Diesel about chat within comms. Do we want to move on to that, or did you want to make it sort of some final comments?
No. If you are a fan of esports and you watch a lot of games, try and keep an eye out for people doing this strategy, and you can see games that would have been won if it had been done. I remember Carrot and I were discussing when we were watching, was it NV versus Ascension? It was ages ago. But they were basically just pushing mid and just leaving the minion wave up to random chance of how they died under turret. Yep. And if it was in their favor, they might rotate bottom or top, wherever the minion waves were. But the enemy team just went, or whatever, they killed the wave as it was coming in. So, but because they didn't have the pressure on in the other lanes, then that person was free to go get those minion waves. So, there are a few, especially in Oceanic region, there are a few prime examples of where this strategy could have won tournaments, not even just games.
Absolutely. Ralph, did you have any final questions about that before we move on?
No, I mean, I think, I think the point you made, though, I think sort of strikes me the most in terms of being aware of the way a minion wave is pushing. I think is probably more important in a solo queue setting than trying to set that up, because I think that the number of variables that you need to control in order to initiate a push and then capitalize upon it in a different lane would be tough in a solo queue setting. I'm not saying it's not possible, but there's just a lot of things that could go wrong if that's the case.
How many solo queue games have we all had where your team just refused to group? That is a perfect example. That strategy would not work for or against that team.
Yeah.
I can't do this because
I'm going to try the 6-man split push against this team to force them to... Oh, they're already split? Oh, wow, what a waste of time.
But I do sort of do something like this in terms of, I will go to, when I, say for instance we're pushing aggressively, I'll go to bottom lane, I'll clear the wave just to get it pushing, and then I'll sort of keep in the back of my mind that I just did that, and then eventually that wave will go top. So I will try to apply some pressure bottom, and typically because
Yeah.
I typically play jungle, and then typically team members will follow me, that sort of thing. So I think if you can try and play a bit of a leadership role, not necessarily like yelling at your team or anything like that, but just trying to apply pressure in other lanes after trying to get that minion wave pushing, you're probably going to see some success sometimes. I guess that's sort of the best you can hope for in a solo queue setting, given how hard it is to coordinate.
And it's very important that when trying to set this sixth man 5v4 situation up, that you don't put your team in a 5v4 situation, because that it completely defeats the purpose of the entire idea. In fact, you're giving that advantage to the enemy team. So don't be conscious of where the enemy team are and where your team are when you're doing it.
Cool. Well, let's talk about some communication stuff. So, I mean, Ralph just brought up about communication within the game and leadership in the game, but we're going to talk about like the actual use of chat communication with your mates, using Skype, using Mumble, using TeamSpeak, using whatever it is you use. So, the question we had from Diesel was about he sort of mentioned how there was a game that he and I and a few others were playing, and I think Steve you were listening to, and he like you didn't hear much talk, and I think that actually prompted me to actually then talk a bit more, and I think we ended up winning the game. So I guess we'll just sort of talk about that side of things. So let's. I mean, what I'm just thinking about.
Where's the actual question? This is
Yeah.
Okay.
State-
I'll put
we
it.
talk through the game?
It's actually like a lengthy email, so I'm trying to boil it down.
Okay.
I'll put it in the document for you guys. There we go. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to think of how I don't throw this to Steve again. So, I mean, I think the key thing is, I mean, one of the main things is that this game in a team setting is all about communication. I mean, team coordination wins games. So the most important thing when you're playing with like strangers and with your mates is that working together wins games. I mean, that's what we see all the time with the actual client. So the main thing is you need to work together. What do you guys reckon? Like, what sorts of things do you think are important when it comes to chatting in voice communication?
I think so much of it depends on your intention. So, for instance, like I've got one guy that I play with quite regularly, and he's a plat player, and he's pretty serious about it, but he's not like super serious. And I guess in the games, a lot of our communication is focused on winning, and so like we'll actually talk about what's happening. We'll talk about, hey, come give me a gank or whatever else, and like a lot of that communication will be focused on that. It is quite focused. I play with some other people, and it's just ridiculousness. Like we're literally just yelling at each other. We're having fun. It's like, no one really cares about the outcome of the game, and we're usually just laughing at our own stupidity more than anything else. So I think you kind of have to first of all say, well, what are we here to do? Like, is this a normal like match, and like a non-ranked match? Are we here just to have some fun? And then just make sure that you kind of sort of keep it to that level. Like just focus on enjoying yourself, and obviously communicate when it's required, but don't go too crazy. At the same time, if you're really focused on winning, then I think you do have to set up some pretty clear sort of communication channels and work pretty actively and that sort of thing. So without going over the top, because some people can be a little bit competitive as they communicate. Some people can sort of get a bit aggressive at times. Who? So you got to not mentioning any nets. Claire. So you kind of got to just sort of keep a balance between being really focused on the objective of winning, but also providing really clear direction. I think as well, something that Cleric does well is he does actually sort of specify shot callers, and I think that matters a lot in the context of if you're playing with more than one person, then having someone whose job it is to actually call things is really important, and setting that up from the start is critical. I mean I don't really play a lot of ranked 5 games, but certainly I remember back in when I used to play a lot of WoW. I played like WoW forever, and used to do like the raid leader stuff. And it was so important in a raid setting to set up proper communication channels, because if you had tons of people spamming vent, then it would just descend into chaos. And
Did they all just yell Leroy Jenkins? Because that's what I do. That's all I know about WoW.
That's your understanding of WoW. Okay, yeah, sure. But no, it's a really strict hierarchy in terms of who spoke and at which and about which things and when and why. And
Yeah.
exactly the same thing applies to League. You know, if you've got a shot caller, it's
We
their
called
job
them
to.
raid leaders.
We call them raid leaders, yeah, exactly. But I mean, now obviously in League, it's the same sort of principle applies. Someone will have a job to call rotations. Someone might have a job to call targets in team fights. Different people excel at different things, and so I think if you can set that sort of stuff up at the beginning, if you're in a rank 5 setting, and you're serious about winning, then obviously that's going to be to your benefit. So, yeah, I mean that's my just sort of general observations.
I mean,
No,
okay.
you go, Garrett.
I was going to say is I think, this whole topic just reminds me of my wife coaches sort of under 17s soccer high school team and her high school team, and one of the key things that she tries to drill into the boys is the importance of talking, because I think what happens and it's true of League, I think it's true of everything, is when you're focused, you stop talking and you just get inside your own head because you're just focusing on CSing or positioning or the map or whatever it is you're thinking about, timers, and in some ways you almost have this dialogue going inside your head that you don't actually say. And if you just said it, it would be very helpful, but because you don't and everybody's silent, it's not very helpful. So I think actually sort of unrelated banter. I mean, you see with the all chat, with the LCS preview show, they'll often have snippets of them just talking nonsense, like while they're in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of helpful. I mean, you don't want people who just get like completely sidetracked, but you kind of almost want people just talking just for the sake of talking, just so that they don't get locked into that mindset where they're just inside their own head and it breaks down the community. You sort of end up having people in little silos. There's no communication between them. So I mean, I think when there's only 5 people, I mean, raids is obviously different in WoW because you got like 30 people or 40 people, so you can't really have everybody just talking. Let's say that again.
25 people.
20, yeah. There you go. You can't just have everybody just saying whatever.
It used to be 40. Come on.
It used to be 40. That's true.
As I said, I don't know WoW.
The day.
But with 5 people, you can kind of just have that. And I mean, obviously, some people are more talkative than others. So I guess in some ways, if you're a naturally talkative person, and particularly if you're a shot caller, just talking all the time is actually it's a good habit to get into, so that when you actually start observing things, like Diesel brings up in his email, like passing a simple matter of passing on the fact that the tier 2 turret on bot has only a few HP remaining can influence quite a few decisions. And that's the sort of thing that exactly is true. Like, as you get into the habit of talking during the game, you get into the habit of then saying, okay, well, this is, flash has been burned here. That's something that I'm trying to do with typing, is when somebody burns their flash, you say, okay, 5 minutes from now, they're going to have flash up.
I'm so proud of you. So proud.
I know, yeah.
Of you,
and even now wards, I'm trying to mention when wards are being put down and where they've been put down.
It's like when someone does that when I'm jungling in a solo queue match, I'm like, oh, I love this person. I'm going to camp their lane for days and just carry them because I love them so much.
So, I mean, it's one of those things that it's a habit you need to build up. It's a skill, but it's also a habit. Like, you just, and that's something when the game that he mentions where Steve actually encouraged me to talk more. I then started. I mean, I think I ended up yelling a bit as well because I got excited and all that. But
That's it.
And my wife, it's not a problem because my wife doesn't appreciate it as
Tracy's
much.
like, keep it down there.
Yeah, she's like,
That's
shut
my
up.
Tracy impression, by the way.
Sounds
So
remarkable to me, apparently.
yeah.
That's right.
Ralph actually only understands everybody in the exact same monotone voice that everybody else sounds. It's one of those things that I didn't intend to not talk, and I intended to be a shot caller, and so I almost had to force myself to to continually talk because that's the job. So yeah, I actually think just talking about anything is good.
It's funny that it should remind you of your wife's 17-year-old sports team, because it just shows how different people we are, because it reminded me of Star Wars. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the Star Wars Episode 4,
For those of you who
original-
listen to a League of Legends podcast but haven't seen
That-
Star Wars, yes, the two
Yes.
people in the entire world that would fit that description. Yes, totally. Please
we
continue.
have a young audience who only saw episode 1, 2, and 3 and thought, "Wow, this is crap." But
Ah,
after watching the episode 4, the original Star Wars movie, when they're attacking the Death Star, and they look down, and it's just a massive planet thing they're about to attack, and Wedge Antilles, or Red 2, says over the comms, "Look at the size of that thing." To which the leader of the squadron says, "Cut the chatter, Red
that's
2."
what she said. Oh, I cut you off. Boom. There we go. That's right. That's a direct quote, people. Actually, it's from the bloopers reel.
Star Wars is that ahead of time.
Star Wars is that
they
ahead
were
of
doing the
time.
same internet meme like long before anybody else.
That's right. That's right.
Beyonce, best video clip of all time.
Anyway, you
But-
were saying, like, before I rudely
Yeah.
cut you off.
Yeah, the point I was going for, and the way that I look at shot calling in general, is very much of that kind of communication structure where everyone kind of starts giving vital information, like the TIE fighters are behind us, or they're ganking bot lane, or there's a ward here, etc. And
I'd be impressed if TIE fighters attacked you in the middle of a league
Me
game.
too. I
Yeah,
would be
that'd be
super
cool.
impressed.
that's never happened to you.
Yes.
But, no, like, but
Just had Darth Vader snipe Baron. You're like, no!
God damn it.
what? Yeah.
Saint Vicious,
Yeah.
why did you fail again? You know.
Headshot kid, that was one in a million. I can go over there.
Yeah.
We could.
But,
we could.
But yeah,
I'm gonna
like,
say that next time I snipe somebody with Caitlyn.
great shot, kid. That was
That was
awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like with the one leader kind of saying, "All right, do this. You guys prepare for your trench run." Blah blah blah. That scene in Star Wars is how I've always kind of approached shot calling. There's a few different important bits of information, like as you were saying before, some people are better at certain things. Like we all know I'm the tactical guy. I'm like, we need to rotate top now. We need to take dragon now. We need to ward this. Those are the calls that I make, but I'm not too great at calling targets in team fights. Like if if Tarek is out of position or whatever, I don't really go, "Everyone target Tarek. Like, I don't do that. I just focus on getting my spells off in the right combination in order to do my job in the team fight. But if there's someone else on the comms, either Carrot Colossus or Armageddon, or a couple of different people that I've played with over the years, they will take over that role. They will take the responsibility of calling targets. And then I'll hear Tarek coming through the headphones, and I'll go, "Well, I'm killing Tarek now." That's just a natural instinct.
It's one of those weird things. Like you see it in the again, like with All Chat on the LCS preview show. Like if you've watched that show, if you don't, you should actually check out the All Chat because it is quite funny.
It's quite fun.
But yeah, you just think it's. You hear them all yelling at like it'll be 2 or 3 people yelling, saying going for the one target, but it's almost like. It's like the birds in Finding Nemo, where they're just like mine, and they just like it's like a flock thing, and it's amazing how effective it is just to yell repeatedly that like the person who you should be targeting.
There's this really funny clip actually of like, it's called, like, you should look at it. It's called How TSM Handle Double Lift, and it's like they're sieging top tower, and they're talking about like, "Hey, go hit the minion now, hit the tower. Okay, cool. Hit Aframu. Okay, Aframu. And then like Double Lift appears from the jungle, and then they're just like Vade, just like over and over again yelling, and they eventually catch him and kill him, and it's quite funny. But I guess that's how it's done at the pro level as well. Just loud yelling, all of a sudden, get him, you know. So
actually, I think so. I saw somebody like Photoshop their faces onto the seagulls from Finding Nemo with Double Lift at the front of them. But yeah, I mean, it's actually one of those things that you think, oh, like it feels dumb doing it, like it really does. Especially, I mean, if you if you live with other people and all they hear is you yelling this, like you just feel like an idiot. But it is really effective, and it is really worth
super effective, you might say.
Yeah, and because all it takes is one. Because it's a bit like communicating in solo queue with randoms as well. Like people actually kind of want to be led. Like they actually kind of want to work together. Thanks to Miss Fish for posting the video in the chat. People want to be led, and so all it takes is one person to be that guy, and you kind of just you sort of pushing the team. It's like a snowball effect. You know, that whole communication aspect. It is about snowballing your team and working together, and so yeah, feel like an idiot. Like it's worth feeling like an idiot.
Well, that's not
to
even
get the
it.
win.
I like it's not the feel like it. Like you might feel like it's shouting at it when you're the only person in your room or whatever. But I think it's a lot more about clarity.
Yeah.
Like we are all unified in this mission. We kill Vayne.
Yeah.
Kill Double Lift. Everybody, go, go, go. If someone has information that is extremely important about not going for that Vayne, they'll have to repeat it 2 or 3 times. But when you're certain of the correct course of action, yell that thing. Go top, go, 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 go. You know, like kill the Vayne. You know, try and get that information out, because if everyone like this is a game of reaction time. Like if you go, oh, should we go in Vayne? Hang on, where's the enemy jungler? I don't see where they are. If someone has already done all that thinking for you, then you just go, and then immediately that Vayne's dead. As opposed to, oh, damn, I'm out of range for my gap closer now. You know, like that kind of just the certainty in that person's voice, that leadership can mean the difference between a one game and a lost game. Like if you try and dive that Vayne like half a second later than you would have originally, then Jarvan might come from the skies and just trap you under tower and that's it. And it could go terribly, terribly wrong if you do not go at like when that call is made. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
How are we for time, Carrot?
I think we got about 10 minutes to go. So,
because I was going to say, I think the challenge is actually, when we're talking about communication, I think the challenge is obviously trying to translate what we've just talked about into a solo queue setting when you're not actually on voice. I mean, like, because the lived reality for most of us is that we're not always on voice chat, you know. We are typically just sort of like trying to communicate with our team using a mixture of pings and like super quick typing because, you know, obviously we need to be able to do our thing. So, you know, I think that everything that we've just said is equally important for you know, a non-voice setting. You just need to try and think about the tools that you have at your disposal and how you employ those. So for instance, you know, if you can be that person that is strategic and you can call rotate top, like the worst thing I reckon you can say in League personally, I think, is like all mid. It's like, it's so annoying when people say that because everyone just says it. Everyone's like, yeah, we've got items now, we've all just backed, let's just rush mid. Like it's dumb, it's not strategic. And I'm not saying sometimes it can be the right thing to say, sure. But in my opinion, like 8 times out of 10 when someone says that, there's actually still a top tower that's available that could be pushed down, or there's dragon, or there's like just so many things that could be done that are just better than that. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
Like it's almost never that I hear someone say push top, push bot, you know, like ward dragon, like that sort of thing doesn't happen.
I'll tell you exactly why, and it's called negative conditioning. Because if you all go top, every single game you type those words, some bitch will go bottom. Whether it's the support, the jungler, I don't care. You say the top, one person goes bottom, and it's the worst place they possibly could have gone. If you go mid, at least there's some kind of quick retreat towards the support who's split push for some stupid reason. That's why mid is better. Also, it's a shorter lane, so you've got a better chance of getting a tower. If you get a kill, you can go either Baron or Dragon. There are strategic reasons why mid is a better pick, but it's not always the best pick. But it is generally a good... If someone says all group mid, please do it.
Yeah.
Don't go...
I mean, I think essentially once you've got the outer towers down, pushing mid is probably your prime objective.
Yeah. If
outside, you know, more or less.
If you're a fair Jax with teleport up, sure, but communicate that to your team. Don't just ignore them.
Yeah, I mean, something I do.
I actually think that. So the thing is, I think with regards to your negative conditioning comment, I think the comment of all mid, the community is conditioned to ignore that now. Generally speaking, in my opinion, I think I've had far more success when I say things like dragon up in 1 minute, ward dragon, or pressure baron now, or ward up top jungle, because I generally find that people will actually listen to that sort of stuff a bit more than they will just say just all mid, if you know what I mean. It's like you're giving them something more interesting they haven't heard before, because like people I think are just as likely to ignore the all mid command as they are to ignore the all top command. But at least if you're sort of talking about something a little bit more strategic than, hey, let's just all get into the same lane and hope something good happens, I generally find people are more responsive to that personally. I'm not sure if you guys have had that same experience.
No, I more or less agree. Essentially what I do, and maybe we could talk about this maybe next week or sometime in the near future where we can go into sort of communication strategy for solo queue in a bit more depth. But essentially what I do, because I try to be a bit of a leader, is type out the strategy. That is, we're going to push mid until dragon spawns, then we're going to take dragon. Or we're going to go top, take down the top tower, rotate to mid, take down the mid tower. It's I try to make it like an actual full sentence that gives people a strategy beyond just the first step. So if I want them in mid, I'll say let's group up mid and push down the tower, because generally that's the time to be pushing. Like there are times where you want to get as much pressure on mid as possible because that helps you to get other objectives. So I mean I think generally speaking, like the general strategy is give complete strategies. Don't just say all. You're right. If you just say all mid, nobody knows what that means. If you say let's group mid and force the tower, that makes more sense. The caveat is expect it to not work about 40% of the time.
Oh, more.
Well,
I think you got to expect 70% failure rate. That's my general experience with.
Yes, you're probably right.
70%.
But I'd say
atrocious.
it's 60. I'd say it's 60-40. I'd say it's 60-40. But in that 40% of the time, it will help you win games 60% of the time. So it's one of those things that if people actually follow it, you're generally going to win. So it's worth the effort. So I mean that's the caveat is you can't expect to win every time, and if you get frustrated. Like every time everybody ignores you, you're just going to end up like myself with no hair, and you want to shoot everybody you come across. So
they're just bots, man. Just bots.
Yeah.
They just wander around randomly on the map, ignoring commands. They're just bots. That's all you could do. That's going to be a thing on the podcast from now on.
Yeah.
It's been a psychological trick I've been training myself for, but no, they're bots.
They're bots. Just bots.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that probably covers it for chat within comms during games. We'll probably come back to that solo queue stuff. I'm sure we've talked about it before. I can't remember when, but we'll talk about it again in the near future. And of course, if you have a topic you want us to cover, email the show, contact the show on Facebook, or hit us up on Twitter. So actually, it's been a while since we've. At the end, I'll give out Twitter and stuff because we haven't done that in a while. But let's do some shout outs. Steve, you're up first.
Yes, I actually some fans that I met while I was out the other night. They
Steve
recognized. We all have fans. Actually, it wasn't just me. It was the three of us. They're regular listeners of the show. Fantasies and Syntax. I've run into, and now I've known Fantasy in real life. I met him when I was cosplaying as Karthus. Well, it wasn't really cosplay. It was a costume at Halloween, and that's how we got onto the fact that, hey, I play League of Legends, so do you. That's awesome. But now he didn't realize that I was the clerical error from the show. So
wait, the clerical error from the show, the clerical error with a capital V.
Man, I felt like a superstar at this place.
Like autographs, 90 cents.
I've actually had that as well once. And they're like, "Are you the real Carrot Colossus?" I'm like, "But there's another one out there. Like, are you serious?"
The real Carrot?
Yeah.
No, I'm an impersonator. Like I just walk around telling people I'm Carrot Colossus.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we've
guy's a
heard
superstar.
impersonations tonight, so I believe you.
Oh god, that's hilarious.
Awesome, because I was not having a particularly good day the day that I went out to, and those guys just cheered me up immensely. So thank you to Fantasies and Syntax.
Yep. And I want to give a shout out to Miss Fish, who helped us out with the Battle Arena on last Thursday. So Miss Fish is our very first Battle Arena graduate. So finally moved into Plat, couldn't play anymore, and as a result of a lot of people saying you should get Miss Fish to commentate, we got him on, and he was really good. So I think he'll be definitely be on again this week. And don't forget the Battle Arena is on at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We play 3 games for bronze through to gold players, and we try to help you get better. So it is a lot of fun, and it's a good opportunity if you want to get some tips. And of course, if you want to have some specific feedback, let us know. You can see us in the client, so you can add us, and we'll look out to help you with a specific thing if that's what you want. So, 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. Check it out, Battle Arena. And if you have been in a Battle Arena, youtube.com/T-Force Podcast is where all the VODs go. So, and I generally put them up within the 24 hours after the game. So, I think with that, we are done with episode... Ralph, did you have any shout-outs?
I just wanted to shout out to Spawny, Barry, and Chrissy, who I play with fairly regularly in normal modes these days. It's been quite a good de-stress after I've had some bad runs in ranked. So yeah, they've been great, and I'm sure I'll be getting more games with them soon.
Cool. All right, and with that is the end of episode 52 of the OzLoL podcast. My name is Carrot Colossus. I've been hosting this for you, joined by Clerical Error and VespQT, and we will be back again next week.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.